Good evening. As folks are starting to arrive, or continuing to arrive, I should say, we're going to start singing. Our first gathering song is more than 300 years old. Written by Isaac Watts and set to music by George Handel, well, really Lowell Mason. But that's a story for another day. When this hymnal here was new in 1993, the committee was attempting to make lyrics more theologically and gender inclusive. Now, in 2022, we tend to complexify theologies as well as the gender binary, moving beyond being afraid of and separate from, but embracing as much of it as we can. So, that said, we're going to have slides with some of the original words and some of the updated words. Sing the ones you know, sing the ones you like, sing the ones on the screen, but just sing. Maria, if you would.
Good evening and Merry Christmas Eve. I'm the Reverend Lynn Gardner. My pronouns are she and they, and I serve as co-minister alongside Reverend Wendy Bartell. Please use Wendy's name rather than pronouns. This Unitarian Universalist faith recognizes that there are many paths to truth. And it is one of our guiding principles to engage in a responsible search for truth and meaning. We are so glad that you have chosen to be with us tonight. So glad. This is our first Christmas Eve in person with unlimited attendance since 2019. We had a brief service last year with 50 folks, and we sang Silent Night outside. It has been strange and scary and wild times these past few years. And this evening, we have several colleagues who have been reporting today that they have had to cancel or modify their services tonight because of weather and or because of COVID with their staff. So let's send lots of love and care to places and folks who wish that they were gathering. We know that there are lots of things that draw people to a Christmas Eve service. Some of you are members here, or friends, or longtime visitors, and you wouldn't miss an opportunity to be able to gather here on this magical night, either in this room or in the Zoom sanctuary that has been part of our expanded services for the last several years. And some of you were maybe brought or invited or cajoled to attend by some of the folks previously mentioned. Some of you are here because church is where you think you are supposed to be on Christmas Eve. Some of you aren't really sure why, and yet here you are. For all this and more, we are really grateful that you are here. We come together on this really cold night here to consider our faith, to contemplate an ancient birth story and our place in the ongoing and ever unfolding story of humanity and existence, to sing some new and familiar songs, and to listen for the wisdom in the darkness together.
Unitarian Universalism recognizes that there are many sources of truth, meaning, that can be found in most of the world's religions, philosophies, and practices, including science and history. This past week, we celebrated winter solstice and Hanukkah, which continues tonight and tomorrow night. And tonight here, we pay particular attention to the Christian scriptures and the story of the birth of Jesus of Nazareth, and consider how this story informs our faith in 2022, on the cusp of 2023. This is an ancient story that we continue to tell. It has things to teach us. Tonight, we explore how the birth story and baby heralded by angels celebrated on this night inspired wise ones and shepherds, poets and songwriters to bear witness to the beauty, the blessings, and the miracles that surround us every moment. This month of December, we have been exploring what it means to be risking joy. And in this season of darkness and light, we interrupt the racist attitude that light is superior to the dark, because we know that we need both. We need all. For both and all are sacred and necessary for life to continue. So tonight we celebrate the light and the dark. And as we prepare ourselves for the mystery and wonder, the singing and the silence, let us receive the gift of our next breath consciously. This small scientific miracle that allows us to live, moving in and out of us, often without a thought. And as the inhale and exhale continue, perhaps listening for angels or ancestors, the cry of a baby or our own heart's longing. When we can, may we repeat the sounding joy, so that all who are in need of it can hear it too.
This evening, we've invited Carol Conyers and Tom and Will Compron to kindle the chalice, to remind us of the spark within each of us, so that our own light might shine, and also so that the collective brightness of those gathered here might shine a light on injustice and bring more compassion to the world. Thank you. And if you're here on Zoom, you can light a chalice too. Our next hymn this evening is number 253. Let us rise as our spirits and physical abilities allow to sing, "O come all ye faithful." And the words will also appear on the screen.
Beautiful.
We've invited Glenn Warnock to share a reading from the King James Version of the book of Luke, chapter 2, verses 1 to 20, explaining in the language of the day why Joseph and Mary were on the move when she was so very pregnant and how the shepherds knew of this birth.
Good evening. I'm a little bit nervous, so I studied Linus in Charlie Brown Christmas doing this exact passage, so hopefully it helps. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And this tax thing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria, and all went to be taxed, everyone into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over the flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you. Ye shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host, praising God, and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill towards men. And it came to pass, as the angels were gone away from them into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, Let us now go even unto Bethlehem, and see this thing which is come to pass, which the Lord hath made known unto us. And they came with haste, and found Mary, and Joseph, and the baby lying in a manger. And when they had seen it, they made known abroad the saying which was told them concerning this child. And all they that heard it wondered at those things which were told to them by the shepherds. But Mary kept all those things, and pondered them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things that they had heard and seen, as was told unto them.
You are a person who would like to hear a story from a little bit closer, I invite you to come find a spot in the center. And if you're happy where you are, that is just fine. Once there was, and once there wasn't, a young shepherd named Eli. Eli and his family lived outside of the city of Bethlehem, where they cared for their sheep. His older brothers and sisters sold the wool and the cheese and the meat in the market in the city, while Eli and their younger brother, who was named Jonah, watched over the flock. Tonight was Eli's turn to stay awake and to make sure that the sheep were safe. His friends, Ariel and Tobias and Samuel, were nearby with their family's sheep. The air was cold, so he pulled his cloak more snugly around him. Some nights it was really hard to stay awake the whole night to watch the sheep. But not tonight. Not tonight. Eli wondered if he would ever sleep again. He wanted to always feel this awake, because just a short time before, an angel had appeared. An angel right there in the hills above Bethlehem. To the shepherds. No one talked to shepherds. It had been startling and frightening at first, but the angels said not to be afraid because they brought good and joyful news. The angel had come to them to announce a Messiah, one who would lead, one who would bring change, and that this child had been born on that night. The angels said that they could go to see the baby. The shepherds could go to see this baby who hadn't been born in a house, who hadn't been born in a palace, even though the angels said he would be a king. He was born in a stable, in a place where animals slept and ate. Now, Eli knew about stables and about mangers where the hay and the grain were placed. They were warm places, the kind of warm that happens when many beings are all together. They had the sweet smell of grain and the not so sweet smell of sheep. And the sounds of animals and breathing and moving. Into such a place, a child had been born that would bring change that was so needed. Now, for those of us who are maybe less familiar with what it was like in the Middle East region during that time, I will tell you that there were great divides, chasms between faiths, between classes, between groups of people who had differences. And while it might be hard to guess what that would be like, imagine yourself in Eli's shoes. Imagine that every time you heard the news of a protest, that there were people who were like you, who were asking for equity and for a voice and for justice. Imagine a time when people were worried for their children's safety and about education. Imagine that most people were taxed at high rates and that many people had to make hard decisions about which bills they could pay. Imagine a time when trees were being cut down on the hillside at such a rate that people were concerned about the future of the earth. Just imagine. Well, there was Eli with the other shepherds, so excited, so curious, so amazed, and they all wanted to go and do what the angels had said to do, to see the baby and then to tell others. But someone needed to watch the sheep. The shepherds took their jobs seriously. Eli knew that if a hungry coyote came, that without someone there to protect them, that the sheep were vulnerable. And as a shepherd who didn't have any power in society, Eli knew what it felt like to be vulnerable. What if we all went quickly, said Tobias, and then came right back? I really want to go, said Samuel, but the sheep need us. Ariel nodded, and one of our flock has been ill, and if the coyote came, it would get her for sure. And then Eli had an idea. What if we take turns? What if Samuel and I stay and you two go first, and then you come back and it'll be our turn? None of us have to miss out on the joy, and we can take care of one another and the sheep too. And that's just what they did. Later that night, Eli and Samuel made their way to the stable where the baby Jesus was being held and passed back and forth between Mary and Joseph. He was so beautiful. He with his little fingers and little toes and that sweet new baby smell and that little smoochy spot right by his ear. Eli watched in awe. Who would have known that this child would bring so much upheaval to the world? Eli went back to the hills to join the other shepherds, grateful that they had one another to care for the sheep and to share this beautiful night. Together they sat and watched the city of Bethlehem below and held all that they had witnessed in their hearts. We are grateful to share this evening with you because each time a child is born, it is a holy time, a sacred time, a special time. As Maria and Luann play O Little Town of Bethlehem, I invite you to make your way back to your seats.
And tonight is about a baby, and so our next hymn is a lullaby. It was written by UU composer, the late Shelley Jackson Denham. If you would turn to number 256, the words will also appear on the screen. Maria will play it through one time. Let us rise to sing this beautiful lullaby, Winter Night. Repeat the sounding joy, joy to the world, joyful, joyful, we adore thee. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Repeat the sounding joy. We began this month talking about sorrow and pain and depression, and made our way through this whole month carrying all the various emotions that we carry, that we experience by being human. Noel, Noel, the angels did say, was to certain poor shepherds in fields as they lay, those shepherds watching their fields by night, protecting their flock from predators, both four-legged and two. They saw the angels and heard their proclamation, and they may or may not have been afraid, but Eli and his friends knew that they needed to take a risk to experience the joy that the angels foretold. Now, sometimes joy just bubbles up in us. We see a flash of red and a cardinal appears on a snowy branch, and we are moved to joy through beauty. Or perhaps your favorite relative or friend calls just after you were thinking about them, and you find joy through connection. Perhaps you found just the right little gift for someone, and you think they are going to be so joy-filled when they open it, and your heart is excited every time you think about their face as they open it, and you know joy through generosity. Or maybe you risk trying that thing that you've been wanting to try but have been kind of afraid to do it, and maybe you weren't sure how to do it, and it turns out you really enjoy it even though you're not so good at it yet, and you know joy through curiosity and risking. Sometimes we're surprised by joy. There are many TikTok videos where someone is talking to a loved one on the phone and they say something to get that person to go to the door, and there they are at the door for a surprise visit, and everyone is so happy. Or maybe when your dog or cat or something jumps up in your lap, or your kid snuggles you, or your parent brings you cookies while you're doing your homework, or your favorite song comes on the radio, and we're surprised by joy. And sometimes joy requires us to risk. If you are a person who enjoys the holidays, perhaps it does not feel so risky. For some of us, joy can come easily during this time. And for others of us, there is a lot of stress and chaos and overwhelm and expectations, both spoken and unspoken. Perhaps hard memories or painful losses this year or some other year. When we have experienced suffering, pain, and or loss, it can feel quite risky to let joy back in. And as many of us know, we cannot fully feel joy if we do not allow ourselves to fully feel sorrow. And there is a risk to keep showing up, to keep caring, to keep loving, even though we might be disappointed, even though we know we will likely be hurt at some point, because being alive, fully alive, means we will experience hardship as well as undeniable blessings. And on this night, as I think on the many stories of Christmas, I am intrigued to see that message over and over and over again. Charles Dickens, who became a Unitarian later in life, wrote A Christmas Carol, and its lead character, some of you will recall, Ebenezer Scrooge, is a great example how risk is a part of our emotional growth. Now, Scrooge was a miserable old miser of a man. The people around him are afraid of him because he is so gruff. And yet, his assistant, Bob Cratchit, and Scrooge's nephew risk in different ways to give Scrooge just a taste of joy. But Scrooge is having none of it. None of it. And because this is a made-up story, there are ghosts in it. As the story goes, he is visited by the ghost of his old partner, Jacob Marley, who had died several years earlier. And he warns Ebenezer to learn from Jacob's mistakes, and that 3 spirits will visit him. And Jacob goes away. And Scrooge writes this visit, this apparition, this something, as maybe a consequence from something he ate. He is indeed visited by spirits that night, and he is reminded of his younger self by Christmas past. He grows in awareness of others' lives but Christmas present, and how his life and death might unfold, a moral reckoning with Christmas yet to come. The ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future wake up something in Scrooge. And when he actually awakens the next morning, it is as if he has been reborn. He then begins the work of risking becoming someone better than he was the night before. He risks generosity with the largest turkey and sending it to the Cratchits. He risks connection by going to his nephews, and he risks joy over and over. He makes amends and makes a generous offering to help the poor in his community. He increases Cratchit's salary. He risks joy by becoming present, by offering care to those around him, and by being generous with his money. And the risk turns out to be worth it. He is much happier. And he gets to have these positive experiences because others risk in return. They risk connection with him, even as they have been treated badly by Ebenezer in the not-so-distant past. His emergence from Scrooge the miser to Scrooge the giver is an incredible transformation. And the reader learns that we all have some choices about how we live and how we can live our lives, even when hard things have happened to us that harden our hearts. How the Grinch Stole Christmas, another story, the Grinch is the Grinchiest. And he wants to steal Christmas from the Who's in Whoville. He thinks it's about presents and decoration and noise, 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 and food. But the Who's down in Whoville know that Christmas doesn't come from a store. They risked joy being present with one another and celebrating another day. Da who Doris, da who Doris, da 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 da. As Unitarian Universalists, we draw inspiration from the Jewish sacred texts and Christian scriptures found in the Bible, and we do not take them literally. They are important stories that have things to teach us of compassion, possibilities, and faith. The Jews foretold of the coming of a Messiah, and the Christian Gospels include stories of who that was in the birth of Jesus of Nazareth. We heard one of those texts earlier. The shepherds risked joy to go see this baby the angels told them about. The three wise ones risked joy to go to the birthplace of one who might save humankind. Mary certainly took a risk, or maybe perhaps we might say she accepted the risk God presented when saying she was now with child. It is a huge risk to be pregnant, with so many possible health impacts, so many possible outcomes, and no matter how healthy we are or how loving we feel, we cannot completely control what happens to the fetus in childbirth, nor the infant, nor the child, nor the teenager, nor the adult, nor the elder. We just don't get to completely control others. We can, however, do our best in any given moment and prepare as best we can, and then keep showing up, keep loving, keep caring, even if our hearts are smashed by circumstances beyond our control and we experience loss and joy feels impossibly far away. The thing is, it isn't. Because joy and sorrow are always woven fine, and they are as close as our next heartbeat. And then there's Joseph. I'm trying to imagine what it was like for him when he comes home to find that Mary is pregnant and she is telling him that God visited her and that's why she's with child. I mean, what went through his head at that moment? I'm so curious. So curious. What do you think?
The scriptures suggest that he is convinced by an angel in a dream to not leave Mary, and so he stays by her. Months later, Joseph and Mary risk traveling together by donkey from Nazareth to Jerusalem to register in the census. And they are serving the God of their understanding. And a certain risk is always involved in that. And they keep knocking on doors, trying to find a place to stay. Finally, an innkeeper offers a stable. This whole Christmas story is full of people taking risks for the promised joy of a new Messiah sent to save the world. And the shepherds, low in the political and social hierarchy, were visited by angels, the story says, perhaps a signal that this being just might bring some change to the way things were. Each of the stories of the season invite us into symbolism and meaning, growing our hearts, sharing what we have, celebrating each person who is born, loving even as we go through loss, caring even as we know misery, connecting even as we may experience desolation. And still, the holy, the sacred, the mystery lives within us all as we risk joy to experience compassion, increase justice, and share love as we build community together tonight, tomorrow, and the days after that. It has become a Christmas Eve tradition for us to share this beloved poem from our dear professor and colleague, the Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker.
She writes, "You have to know your body as the home of God. And this is the purpose of Christmas. The rose blossoming in the wilderness is the unfolding of your pleasure as the fingers peel an orange and sweetness buds in the mouth. The bright star in the night sky is the sudden clarity of your instinct for joy. The birth cry in the night is your child falling into the dark and your arms holding her. The terror of Herod's murderous intent is your rage that would prefer death to change. The singing angel is your voice at church, not sure of the tune, but certain for a moment that there is glory. The animals breathing their warm breath in the fragile stable are your emotions kneeling into the body of earth, at ease in the presence of God. Mary is you, God in your body. Joseph is you, sheltering God in the world. This is the key to the mystery. The Word became flesh. We are the dwelling place."
Being a parent is perhaps one of the riskiest things we can become, moving through the world, trying to do our best, even as we are constantly tested by life. These past nearly 3 years have been enough to overwhelm even the most resourced family. And I invite you to risk joy even more and consider that right now, no matter how today has been or how tomorrow unfolds, that you are enough. You are enough. You are doing enough. You are rocking this parenting and grandparenting and great grandparenting thing, this choosing not to parent thing, this not parenting thing. And because if you are a person who doesn't have kids, you are rocking it too. If you are hearing my voice, you are the dwelling place. You are not your worst mistakes or your best accomplishments. You are simply love incarnate, just like your kids and your parents. And if you keep grounding yourself in that truth that you are love incarnate, as are everyone else in the room, that you are the dwelling place for the divine mystery, then we will repeat the sounding joy over and over and over again. May it be so.
Amen.
Amen. And blessed Christmas to all. On this night, when hope is reborn and the miracle of peace might be within reach and joy may resound and even repeat, we bring our worship service to a close by sharing candlelight and singing Silent Night. As we continue to darken the room, we can begin to notice just how much light a single flame can offer. Jesus' life and teachings brought the light of God's love and the hope of justice and peace to many. And like a flame, his message was not completely safe or easy to contain. It threatened those in power just as he questioned the status quo. Love one another, he said, simple and yet so challenging. Tonight, as we sit in almost darkness, We will pass a flame from person to person. Let us see love's pure light. Each of you possesses a unique spark that would bring light to some part of the world if you would but kindle it. Within every one of us lies the potential to be the dawn of redeeming grace for one another when we make amends, when we dare to rise up against injustice, and when we care for one another.
We ask you now to turn to 251 in the hardback hymnal, and then just turn the book over next to you, or on your lap, now that you can't see next to you. For those of you at home, Kristin will paste the lyrics into the chat. You might want to find a candle and turn down the lights nearest you to allow for a bit more darkness too. We're going to let the candlelight slowly make its way around the room. You only need to pass it to one person so that each of us might give and receive in equal measure. And there's no need to rush. After the flame has gone down to the end of one row, that last person in that row, you can simply turn and pass it just to that one person behind you in the next row. Let it go slowly. Enjoy the delicate changes in light in this room. You're already being able to see more, yes? Even though we've been in the darkness. It is so amazing what our eyes can do sometimes. For those of us who have eyes that can do that, maybe we might consider making a little bit of eye contact in that process, too. Enjoying the giving and the receiving. To avoid candle wax on you or the carpet, we ask that the person holding the candle with the flame hold it upright. So flame up. And the candle that needs enlightenment to lean toward the flame, like so. Holding your candles carefully, near to you but not too close. Flame up. We'll begin in silence and near darkness. And as the light fills up the space, eventually, Ross Brennan will begin singing Stille Nacht. And at some point, we'll join him and begin singing Silent Night. After we finish singing, you are invited to remain in the circle for as long as you would like. Listen to your inner self when you are ready. You are quietly invited to extinguish your candle, lowering your mask briefly, and a gentle blow. Return your mask over your nose and mouth and place your candle in one of the baskets at the top of the circle and join us for a light dessert reception in the dining room, where masks are welcome and optional. Please wear your masks everywhere else. Breathe easy. Let this happen with great regard for one another and the magnitude of the history of this birth story to which we are connected.
Stille Nacht, heilige Nacht, alle schlaft, einsam wacht, nur das traute hochheilige Paar. Der Rabe im lockigen Haar, schlaf in himmlischer Ruh, schlaf in himmlischer Ruh. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child. Holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, shepherds quake at the sight, glories stream from heaven afar. Heavenly hosts sing hallelujah. Sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, child of God, love's pure light, radiant beams from thy holy face. With the dawn of redeeming grace, sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. Night, child. Holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in